sharing our stories connects us. Listen and be connected. Join us for the conversation meeting weekly at the intersection of community and culture. Hosted by Mario Nunez and Joe King Carter.
Oh, you have mic.
We all have microphones. You know we have mics, and we have headsets, too. Hi, everybody. It's Wednesday, and it's noon, or noon 06 and 30, and this is The Conversation on WMNF, WMNF.org. If you're listening on your app or you're listening from anywhere in the world you happen to be, we'd like to welcome you to The Conversation. My name is Mario Nunez, and as always, I'm seated alongside my broadcast partner,
Joe King Carter. Good afternoon. Hey, hey.
And Joey is in rare form today, as he always is.
Man, loving life.
Well, you know, Joey, it's not real easy out there right about now. You know, it's in fact, it's tough. Let me just say, the images of crown-wearing presidents flying F-16s and dumping whatever that was that came out of the bottom of the airplane.
I think we know what that was.
Is a little disconcerting, as well as
I didn't know he knew how to fly.
As well as a backhoe
F-16, yeah.
taking after the east wing.
He wasn't
of
in the military. I mean, what? How did he learn that?
Captain Bone Spurs, as well as the claw, the destructive claw of a backhoe taking after the east wing. I don't know, but I had a visceral reaction to that myself. It's like, you know, of all the things this monster has done, that one provoked a gag reflex in me, and I really felt sick to my stomach afterwards.
Well, yeah, you know, it's a little hard watching someone who is supposed to be your leader crapping on Americans. My thought about all this is simply this, folks. In the midst of all of this negativity, remember this, that all change comes from the bottom up. All significant positive change comes from the bottom up. And we are here today in community radio because Mario and I believe in community. And I know that you do too out there listening. So you know what? Here's my advice is get involved, be part of your community. And remember that, there'll be other marches coming, and show your strength, and that's the way it works. The only chance that we have, it's certainly not going to come from the top down. So the only chance we have of really changing this system and this regime is to be involved at the community level.
Hear, hear, Joey, and that, my friend, is why I have you sitting next to me. For you, at times we'll come up with what everybody needs to know is a wonderful, wonderful lesson and something to rally around and move us forward. Let me say before we continue on the show, we've got a wonderful guest for you. We're about to introduce you to her in just a couple of minutes, but I had an experience this morning when I was at La Segunda Central.
La Segunda
Bakery.
Yeah.
Thank you for calling La Segunda Bakery. When you call and you hear a familiar voice, it might just be me. I'm just saying. I had the occasion to get my café con leche this morning and a little pastry to get me going before the show. And I ran into this young lady that was there. Her name was Michelle. She was there for the first time. And so I almost fell on the floor. I had to pick myself up. What do you mean the first time? Well, I come to find out she moved to the Bay Area about a year ago from St. Pete via Los Angeles, City of Angels, L.A., and I was giving her, in the 20 minutes that we had to wait for the order to be prepared, because they were busy, I gave her a little history tutorial.
She bumped into the right guy.
I was channeling my inner, thank you, Joey, Mr. Tampa. I was channeling my inner Joe King Carter, I told her as much as I could possibly tell her in 20 minutes, probably too much. But I wanted to give her a shout out today. I'm hoping she's listening. Maybe she's even eating her Cuban sandwich presently, or her pastelillo con queso, drinking her café con leche over at J.C. Newman Cigar Factory. That would have been a great place. If you're just coming to Tampa for the first time in Ybor City, maybe start there, because it's a wonderful history lesson, too.
Sure, yeah. There's a lot there in that area. It's of course, concentrated as the wellspring of Tampa. And you know what? Welcome, Michelle, if you're listening. Welcome. I mean, come over to Tampa whenever you'd like. We're a hospital.
In fact,
place.
Aren't you doing a tour, Joey, on what is it, November 9th?
That's right. And I should mention that we are doing a tour as a fundraiser, and we still have a few seats left, a few positions left in the tour. We haven't capped it yet. A lot of people are going to be involved. And so if you would like to join us for a $50 donation, please do. It is November 9th That's a Sunday at 11 a.m. At the mouth of Centro Ybor at 1600 on 7th Avenue. And you can call the station here and sign up if you'd like.
And bear in mind, Joey said that it's we have seats available. I don't want to confuse anybody into thinking that
It's a walking tour.
that it's a riding tour. I wish it were.
Yeah.
And at some point it might be if we can find a rather wealthy benefactor.
Well, what would I call that? We have spots.
Slots or
Slots, yeah. I wasn't...
spots and slots.
Yeah.
So, and also before we get to the meat of the show today, let me once again try to clear this frog out of my throat once and for all and say thank you to all of those wonderful listeners, wonderful donors that stepped up to the plate. I'm going to read the names real fast that helped us make our goal. First names only, Mario, please. Christopher, Phil, Mary, Gloria, Joe, Missy, Eileen, Mario, Sherry, Richard, Catherine, Risa, Jeff, Douglas, Celine, Tom, Tina, Suzanne, Richard, and David. I just want to say thank you all, one and all, for your generous donations to the conversation and to WMNF, right, which is the parent company, if you will.
Sure.
Because your donations, especially this time of year and this time in our history, are so critically important.
Thank you so much, folks. Your support is deeply appreciated by both of us.
Thank you. Joey, let's get to our guest because she's sitting there smiling at us. She's got so much to say, and we want everybody to know and hear and learn from her. Joey, take it away.
Yeah, well, we have with us today Karen Clay, and some of you in the community already know who that is. And we are going to be talking to her about her life and what she is currently doing, which I think you will find most interesting. Each month here at WMNF, we have a mission statement, a mission cause, and this month is folks with disabilities and the world of other ability. And so Karen is involved in that process very greatly, and so we would like to introduce her. Good afternoon, Karen.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. Talking about voices,
You got one too? You got one too? I don't know what it is. Maybe it's a little something in the air.
It's my allergies.
Yeah, I'm going to go with that too.
I'm so happy to be here and just really honored that you invited me. Thank you.
Well, you sound beautiful and you have a beautiful voice, so don't worry. So let's talk a little bit about, we're going to first talk about what your titles are, so that will give people a little warm up, and then we're going to go back and talk about where you sort of originated. But what are you currently involved in politically in the state of Florida?
Well, politically, I'm currently involved in the Democratic Disability Caucus of Florida, as well as the Democratic Disability Caucus of Hillsborough County. I chair both of those organizations. And in my work life, I am with Florida Voices for Health, and I'm their lead story banker. And in my personal life, I am the president of the Michael Phillips Foundation, an organization that we recently founded, and I hope to be able to talk a little more about later on in the show.
Absolutely. So we are going to talk about that later in the show, but and all of that has already got me so interested. I'm very curious.
Are you leaning in, Joey?
Yeah, I am, really. Because I'm meeting, just like everybody in the audience, I'm meeting Karen for the first time. Let's talk about where you grew up, Karen.
Oh, wow. That was so long ago. I was born in a town called Swickley, Pennsylvania.
Swickley?
Which is outside of Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania.
Western Pennsylvania.
And Swickley is also the home of Mario Lemieux, one of our most famous hockey players.
Number 99?
And Mario knows what a fan
66?
of hockey
Was he 66
I am.
or 99?
99.
99, that's right.
And,
That's right.
I grew up there and then went to the University of Pittsburgh, did my undergrad there.
Go Panthers.
My graduate work I was in women's studies at George Washington University in D.C. And from there, my path, I think, really was to have my children. And my Mike, of course, who was disabled, really, set my path in life. And I've been a disability advocate now for over 45 years.
Wow.
So it's been a while.
Wow. So we went through all of that very quickly.
Hence the titles, Joey, that she holds
I
are
see that.
super
Yeah,
appropriate, right?
absolutely.
Nobody better
Absolutely.
to lead those organizations.
Growing up in Swickley, what kind of kid were you? What were you doing?
Well, I was born in Swickley. I grew up in another small town called Aliquippa, home of Tony Dorsett, a famous football player.
Absolutely. And a Pitt Panther
But
and a Dallas Cowboy.
Aliquippa was a steel town back then.
Aliquippa's indigenous name?
Yes,
Absolutely.
It's after an Indian,
Yes.
and in West Aliquippa was the home of Henry Mancini. And if you can imagine, like being surrounded by blast furnaces and steel production and dirty air back then, it's amazing what can come from some
Those
beginnings
foundries that were going 24/7
they
most
were.
time with 3
And
shifts.
the river was dirty, the air was dirty.
Wow.
But since then, they've really cleaned up just that whole
But
stretch.
both you and Henry Mancini came out of that dirty environment.
Where he was, it was even dirtier than where I was.
So, Karen, when you hear or when you say the name or when you hear the name Henry Mancini, what's the first thing you think
Moon
of?
River.
Moon River? For me, it's this. Doo-doom, 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 doo-doom.
Yeah.
Da-da-da-da-da.
Yeah.
Go on, Pink Panther.
Yeah.
No, he was, just so many other people, of course, from that area. But, Pittsburghers are very friendly people. So I usually just tell people I'm from the Pittsburgh area.
Yeah, they're not Philadelphians.
No,
Let's
not at
not
all.
confuse the two.
No, it was always a blue collar town. It is more white collar now because the steel mills have pretty much all shut down, which has made, of course, the air cleaner and the water very clean as well. So it was a good place to come from.
Did you have siblings?
I had 2 brothers. One brother passed away, but my brother Jack, he's still around, and I always like to tease him, that I'm the younger sister. But we were a close family. I think families had to be back then in the 50s and the 60s. I grew
absolutely.
up, next door to my 2 aunts and uncle who never married. So I always had a choice of dinner selections. If I didn't
That's
like
beautiful.
If I didn't like what Mom was making, I just went next door.
That's great.
But I think a lot of it was I grew up with a lot of love. And having, my children, and especially my Mike, who just needed so much care, less, of course, when he was younger, but basically taking care of someone who needed every physical need met. I had to bathe Mike, dress Mike, feed Mike, all of the things that children, as they grow, parents, then that role disappears.
Now, how old were you when Mike was born?
Well, let's see. In my 33? Yeah.
33.
In my 30s.
And what was the condition that made Mike different?
Well, initially, they called it Werdnig-Hoffman disease. And then from Werdnig-Hoffman, it became spinal muscular atrophy, or SMA. SMA is an illness that their cells in the spine, and the anterior horn cells are the ones that take the message to the muscle. And for some reason, those nerve signals just stop, and so the muscles they don't get diseased as in a dystrophic process. They just atrophy. So hence spinal muscular atrophy. And Mike had the most severe form. And when he was initially diagnosed, he was between 9 months and a year. They first told me he wouldn't see his first birthday. And I just remember looking at this. And he was chubby. He was really like the Michelin tire baby, it rolls. And I just couldn't, imagine looking at him that was his fate. And thank God it wasn't. He outlived any prediction they ever had. And then as he aged, of course, they knew more and more and more about the illness. But Mike was, the one thing they did tell me when he was diagnosed is that he's going to be very smart. And they
that
were
he
right
was.
about that.
And that he was.
Interesting.
He was just extremely gifted. I mean, he knew the operations of a computer as well as any of the engineers in Cupertino. He was always a Mac man. I have a photograph of him with Steve Jobs. He has the only interview with Steve Jobs for a gaming publication. Mike was a big gamer. And I think that was a lot of how any person with a disability, especially a child, becomes interested in computers because they want to have fun. They want to play. And once they learn how to use the computer for fun, then the sky's the limit. I mean, you don't want to teach a kid how to take a quiz or a test or to write a paper for school. You want to teach them how to have fun with the technology. And that was Mike.
And was it just you and Mike?
No, it was me, Mike, and Brian. I can't leave my Brian out. Brian was... And was just an incredible brother. He and Mike, they
older brother?
A younger
brother.
Mike's
okay.
the older. And when we lived at a condo in St. Pete, the rules were unbelievably strict. And of course, they would do everything they could to break them. And Brian would ride on the back of Mike's wheelchair, and I would get letter after letter from the condo association. Your sons were caught riding their electric wheelchair, which is the worst thing you could say about a wheelchair, on the walkways and on the path of the golf carts. And, and I would just laugh. I should have saved every one of these letters because these people were I called them the condo commandos.
Ah, yes.
People who had no power in life and then just became just these power grabbers.
Yeah.
Joey, just because a child, a young adult, an adult, is disabled, and in the way that Michael was, doesn't mean that they're not mischievous, doesn't mean that light doesn't still burn brightly. And, of course it surprises no one that the two brothers would be conspiring to do things like that.
Of course, yeah, of course.
No, Mike was the one who came up with the
idea. Yeah. He convinced his younger brother to do it.
Brian was the one who did them.
Yeah, right.
And even playing games. I know there was a game, Prisoner of Zelda, if any of you, you know what that game is. And it's a thinking game. You really have to remember what you did to get here to go there.
Right.
They beat that game in a week.
Oh, wow.
I mean, because Mike would remember all of it, and Brian would be there, the one with the controller. And then eventually, of course, games were on the computer, so then Mike was really able to play. And there was one called Hearthstone it was almost 1 million people, like worldwide, that were playing that game because you had to register to play. And at one point, Mike was second in the entire world.
Wow.
And there was a tournament.
Let's ring one for Michael.
There was a tournament that if he had won, he would have gone on to Las Vegas and been on a stage. And it was like there was some luck involved, unfortunately, in this game. And it was the last roll of the draw of the cards. And he didn't pick he didn't get the right card. And I started crying and he started crying because I wanted all of these people to see that someone who's not even using their hands just kicked the ass of almost 1 million people around the world.
And how did he, you said not using hands, how did he operate his equipment? Or
well, at one point he did have a string switch or a proximity switch where he used his thumb, but then he had a blood draw and it damaged the nerves in his thumb, and he's like, I'm done. And then we found out about a neuro switch, which actually works on the nerve impulses in the body.
Amazing.
So as long as there is still nerve conduction, there is the ability to utilize that as communication. So I remember somebody had texted Mike, look into this. And so Mike texts me and says, call this guy. There's a phone number. I called him at 3 a.m. in Australia. I obviously didn't know.
The time change.
And the first thing he said to me is, what does he use now? I said he's a switch and scanning user, which means it's somebody who is either using a switch with their fingers or hands or eye. And he said, how fast? I said, he's the fastest in the world, which he was. He said, I'll see you in 3 weeks. He saw us in 2.
Wow.
He utilized Mike to really do all of his research and development. And Mike even moved his platform from a PC platform over to a Mac platform. And Mike just constantly challenged him. His name was Peter Shanford. And we're still in communication because Mike just did so much to move that forward, not just for Peter and the company, but for people around the world. I mean, Mike has had no idea how many people he
was
was
affecting.
actually helping
Sure.
and impacting. And it was the same even here in education. Mike was the first to take his FCAT back then, which was the test to graduate from high school, on his computer. And there were so many just boundaries or barricades that he broke through for others. And that was a lot of what he did for this neuro node. Well, now they call it a neuro node. And so anyone, if you are still breathing, and even if you can't communicate because of a stroke or, other reasons, there's still communication available to you.
Absolutely.
And that's what Mike tried to, like so many neurologists would come in to Mike's room every time we were in the hospital.
If you're just joining us now, you are listening to The Conversation on WMNF 88.5, and you're listening to a conversation with Karen Clay, who is describing the love affair that she had for how many years was Michael with us?
Almost 40 years.
Almost 40 years, and he wasn't supposed to see his first birthday. I think that has a lot to do with the love and the care that you gave to him, Karen. Also, his spirit for life, that Michael was he was the brightest of the brightest stars. Let's do a little station ID when we come back. We'll continue the conversation and perhaps even solicit for your phone calls.
Hey, I'm Rick Randall with MusicTampaBay.com. You're listening to The Conversation with Mario Nunez and Joe King Carter on WMNF 88.5 FM in Tampa.
Is it okay?
What do we do with that voice? What are we going to do with Rick Randall?
Could you tell that man had
60 years of
60
radio
years of
time?
radio experience? It was just right there in his voice,
It
wasn't
was.
Yeah.
It surely
A
was.
great
Thank
guy.
you. Thank you, Rick, for the wonderful show last week. Let me also say that we did have a call right up at the top of the show, William. We saw that you were calling from Tampa. We will open the phone lines now, and we will take the calls as they come in. We usually do this second half of the show. So let me give you that number now in case you'd like to call in. You've got a question or a comment for Karen, and we can be of help. 813-239-9663. If you'd like to send us a text, that's 813-433-0885. I'll be monitoring your emails, dj@wmnf.org.
So let's talk a little bit, because we're already we're halfway through the show, and we haven't discussed about the caucus yet. But let's
Or the foundation.
So let's talk a little bit about Michael's foundation.
Well, the Michael Phillips Foundation was created to honor his legacy and just to keep him alive in so many ways. The things that Mike contributed and all of the boundaries and the barricades that he broke through for others, I think is something that more people are not only interested in, but want to participate in. So our first fundraiser is coming up in February of next year, Friday the 13th of February.
As well it should.
Because we had one on the 13th before, and it was a lucky day. So we've selected that again. It's going
And
to be
easy to remember. Yeah.
at the Rusty Pelican. And, we want people to not only understand a little bit about Mike and what he did and why it's important to honor his legacy, but also to understand the need for accessibility. And our first project is going to be to fundraise for a piece of, and hopefully more in time, of accessible play equipment in one of our city parks. So it is a partnership actually with the city where we will be, educating people and fundraising so that they understand, because I don't think anyone intentionally doesn't provide accessibility. I think they just aren't
They don't
aware
know. They don't
of the
know.
absolute
Right.
need.
Yes.
And I just remember so many times, like there was one school picture that was taken, and, all of the children in Mike's class were on the bleachers, and Mike was like way off under a tree. And at the time, parents, I think, need to learn how to pick their battles. Now maybe I would have said, come on, please put him in the picture. But back then I just thought it was funny, and so did Mike. But he was always included in regular education classrooms, because that is where he should have been and deserved to be.
Deserved
And
to be,
by
certainly.
law, He was
required to be.
What Mike did was he brought more technology into the classroom, because a teacher would say, Mike, we need a new printer, or Mike, we need a new computer.
Right.
And at that time, he was at Plant High School with Vince Sussman. And Vince was, again, a remarkable man himself. The first time I met him, he said, stupid rules are for stupid people. And I've never forgotten that.
Yeah,
and
that's great.
so, the foundation, as we grow, we will be able to do more. A lot of it is assistive technology, because that's what Mike used. He had literally 2 EKG sensors, one on each side of his temples. And with that, he controlled his entire environment.
It's amazing.
Everything. And was able to play games at a rate that, again, beating over almost 1 million people at a game like that, it just showed his skill.
And by the way, let me just say real quick, for those people that don't really get the importance of technology and science, this is why it's important, because that kind of stuff is going to continue to progress, and we are going to be able to bypass many of the problems we see with people today. I also want to say very quickly, because this is your show, I feel, but I want to say that we spoke earlier. I grew up with a father in a wheelchair during a period of time where there was no ADA, and accessibility, when you say that word accessibility, it has a very specific meaning to me. And most of the public spaces in my boyhood, which was 1,000 years ago, by the way, but in my childhood, most of the public spaces were not available to my father. He was not able to go into a hardware store or any other place because you just couldn't get him in, number one. Number two, I spent about a decade as an art instructor and the art director for a nonprofit here locally that works with people with disabilities, intellectual disabilities, and also physical disabilities. And all of that, between my father and that experience, all of it comes around to this idea that people who have disabilities, or if you want to call them other abled, however, whatever the language, doesn't matter to me. Those people just want to, A, be treated as a normal person in life, be respected and have that dignity, and they want to contribute. And how lucky it was that Michael got to contribute in the way that he did. And I think that your foundation, I think, is just an amazing act on your part. Thank you so much for doing that.
Well, technology is definitely the key, and having access to that technology is very important. Inclusion really is the law of the land.
That's the key.
And a lot of people don't understand that when a person with a disability, or a child in particular, is in a regular education classroom, I don't even like the word regular, but in a typical classroom, it is also in teaching children how to get along and understand the needs of a person with a disability. And I like to say disability isn't a condition, it's a community. Because people with disabilities vote. And in the state of Florida, we actually have a higher number than anywhere in the country. We have 1 in 3 voters that identify as having a disability. Nationwide, 1 in 4 voters who identify as having a disability. So I always encourage candidates, when you don't talk to the disability community, you aren't talking to a large number of voters, and that's what's very important.
It's a great disservice, and boy, do we need that now more than ever, Karen. Look at the environment, the political environment, the environment, the community environment that we're living in now. It seems to be regressing. We seem to be going backwards, not only with people of color but and the immigrants, certainly, but people with disabilities or other abled. It's
everything.
It's a horrible situation we find ourselves in. I do have a caller. Can I go ahead and let's see what the caller has to say and offer to our show today. David, we see you there on the line. Thank you so much for being patient with us. What say you, sir?
Oh, yeah. Hey, this is David Bryant. Hey, how are you guys doing?
Hey, Pep, how are you?
I'm doing good, yeah.
White pepper.
Can I say something, David? Can I say something? I think it's important that we should say this, and I think Karen would agree. Happy birthday, my man. Happy birthday to you, White Pepper. Listen, I know you're calling gratuitously because you wanted to get that on the air, but I wanted to make sure that everybody knew today was your birthday. How old are you today, David?
52.
Yum, to be 52 again. Huh? Everybody in the studio would be 52 again if we could.
Yeah.
David, tell us what's on your mind, and happy birthday.
What's up, David?
Thank you. I had a couple questions for your guest. I was curious about whether she's involved or knows about the Embracing Our Differences program, which I believe is in Sarasota. My nephew, Seth Morano, has cerebral palsy, was part of that, but it really kind of celebrated people with disabilities and overcoming, the struggles that they have. And my other question is whether she thinks the ADA could be kind of defanged because of the current guy that's in the White House, occupying the White House, because supposedly he's anti-diversity now or anti-woke. So would ADA be considered woke,
Well, take the second question first.
Those
That's
are
the
good
ADA
questions.
defanged. And the first question you might not have heard has to do with, have you heard, Karen, of the organization called Embracing Our Differences, Embracing Our Differences program?
I haven't heard of that program. There was some reason my
The headphones were turned
wasn't
down a little
working.
bit, yeah.
So then I heard the second question. The second question, the ADA is really an employment law. And that's the way that it has been implemented. When it comes to accessibility is certainly part of that. And this administration is trying to, administration is a kind word. This regime is trying to end all of that. I mean, you see what he did just yesterday with the Department of Education, wanting to move exceptional student education over to RFK. Oh, my God. I mean, that's like going from the frying pan into the fryer. And it's just, I mean, if you want my blood pressure to go up, it's talking about the things that are going to so greatly impact the disability community when it comes to not only education, but health care. These are the largest cuts to Medicaid that we have ever seen. And it is not only unconscionable, but it is cruel. And for people with disabilities, they are going to feel the impacts of this big, beautiful, I don't even like to say those two words together because it is an ugly,
It's a big, ugly bill.
And I just, I tell families that in Florida, you are going to be impacted even more greatly because the billions of dollars in cuts that we're going to see to Medicaid, especially even though they're spread out over the next few years, they are going to impact all of the Medicaid programs that we currently have here in Florida. And when families, get in touch with me for whatever reason, either through the caucus or through my work with Florida Voices for Health, my first question is, are you married to this state? Do you have to stay here? Because if you don't have to stay here, why would you put yourself, your child, or children through what you are going to experience here? It is going to be a battle for every single thing you get, from education to transportation to health care.
Services, medical
to
services.
Additional services. I mean, that's what the Medicaid waivers are there for. Now, the Medicaid waivers are optional. What makes us think that the state of Florida will continue an optional program when they aren't going to receive any funding or just far less funding?
And by the way, Karen, let me just I have to interrupt you because I mentioned a moment ago that I worked with people with disabilities extensively, a large number, 250 people, and a large majority of them who have all kinds of incredible disabilities, wheelchair bound, they're bound in horizontal lifts, they can't feed themselves, they can't clean themselves, and many of them are on Medicaid waiver.
Yes.
And who out there is going to pay for that? What kind of person are you as a person who supports this regime to say, are you going to personally start paying for people who have disabilities? It's outrageous to me, and it is cruel. Yeah. You're absolutely right. It is cruel.
Shall we? Is this a good time to inquire about what maybe perhaps David Jolly has to think about these things? Because we need a champion in this cause. I'm just throwing it out there for those in general.
Yeah.
He has.
Pepper, you're still on the line with us. I'm going to let you go so you can listen to the rest of the show. We've got a couple of
White
callers.
Pepper.
Happy
Thank
birthday,
you for the
my
call.
man.
Happy birthday.
And we will see you soon, brother. We will see you soon.
Happy birthday, brother.
Thanks. Don't forget Blue Hulk. You wouldn't like.
That's so that was White Pep. He says, don't forget about Blue Hulk, and we'll talk about Blue Hulk in a few minutes. And for those of you that know, David Bryant is his on-air moniker is White Pepper. He's part of the Soul Kitchen on Friday nights. And listen, if you've not listened to it before, you need to listen to it because it's pretty good stuff. They're always cooking in the kitchen.
That's right. So
yes, I'm sorry.
Yeah. So let's talk a little bit more about what you do as president of the Democratic Caucus for Disabilities. Talk a little bit more about the overall.
Flesh that out for us.
Yeah.
Well, a lot of it is education, not only of our candidates, but also of the party in general. We are the big tent party, and as such, we still believe in diversity, equity, and inclusion. And we even have like an entire committee about those three things, so that all of the 67 counties where there are Democratic executive committees are implementing diversity, equity, inclusion. We try to make sure that all of our meetings are hybrid meetings, so that if it poses a difficulty for someone with a disability to attend in person, they can still be participating. And I think we've really come a long way with the party. I know that anytime I have a question for the party chair, all I have to do is text her, give her a call. She's been very open. And you did mention David Jolly. David has been very supportive of the disability, not only the Disability Caucus, but of disability issues. There was just an event in Tampa on the 15th.
Over at the Skills Center? Is that the one that was at the Skills Center?
Yeah, mm-hmm. and that was so, it was so incredibly well attended. And
Julie Jenkins, thank you for putting that together.
And that was Julie Jenkins.
That was Julie. Jules, he's a beast.
And David Jolly was there, Fentress Driscoll, and Rick Wilson. Come on.
Rick Wilson.
What a trio.
Right.
And that's what I see in a candidate
the
like
Lincoln
David.
Project.
David is able to bring a national presence of not only supporters, but, really outspoken either critics of this regime or people who understand policy and those issues. And he really is explaining things to people at that level, a lot like Hillary Clinton did when she would be campaigning. She would come with policy all ready to discuss. And I think the experience that David has had in that arena is what he brings, to the table. So I've been very, very, very impressed, very happy with him talking about Medicaid, talking about the need for Medicaid expansion. Here we are, one of only 9 states that has not expanded Medicaid. And then they're saying, well, we're not going to be as penalized as others. We already are doing work requirements. That's already there for SNAP. To get SNAP, you have to attend some sort of classes. I don't know what you're supposed to understand from that. But bottom line, now they're taking away the funding for those classes. Mm-hmm. So does that mean they're going to make SNAP even more difficult, or is it going to disappear?
Right.
Women, infants, and children, all of these programs they're under attack. Mm-hmm. And until people wake up or just start seeing
or are personally affected,
insurance premiums, all insurance premiums are going up. All of them, because so much of it is already tied to the Affordable Care Act. So their excuse is going to be, well, because the tax credits are going to go away, now we're going to have more costs, so we're going to pass those costs onto the consumer. There are no protections for the consumer any longer. And for people with disabilities, you can imagine how much more difficult it is to navigate a system that is the cards are already stacked against them. So we need more organizations. We need, where my job comes in, we need more stories. We need people to tell us what you're experiencing, because Florida Voices for Health, we take that and we tell your stories to the legislators, or we record your stories and show them to the legislators.
We've got a call. I'd like to get the call, and then when we come back on the other side of the call, let's talk about Florida Stories. Let's talk about that organization and the great work that it's doing. And then I've got a comment about Miss Karen from your host, Mario. Caller, we see you there. Eileen from Tampa. Hi, honey. What say you today?
Hey, how are you guys? Great show. I love your advocacy that you're working on. I love the fact that you've got a partnership with the city, so bravo to you. And by the way, Friday the 13th is also my lucky day. So I wish you much success with that fundraiser.
Also the day before another day, which is kind of has some note in our culture, which would be Valentine's Day. So, yeah, it's appropriate. It's a love fest.
Absolutely, yes. And just a quick mention, I adopted my son, and if it weren't for government assistance before I was able to privately adopt him at 10 years old, he came to me at 7 months. I got to tell you, I don't know where I would be. So bravo to you. Keep up the advocacy. People like me used it, and it helped my son immensely become the man he is today.
Oh, I hear you, and I understand. I mean, the best that my son had it was when he was dually enrolled in Medicare and Medicaid. Those programs absolutely work. And the difficulties that I had prior to that, I mean, I used to say, PMS, let it work for you. That's when I would call the insurance companies, because they would, deny every single claim. And it was like deny, deny, deny. And that basically became, a full-time job. Getting insurers to pay. But with Medicare and Medicaid, I really, truly did not experience that. And I know people, there's so many people that think Medicaid is a scam, and how difficult, how easy it is for anybody to get on it, and how they're using the system. No, it is not. In the state of Florida, the only way an able-bodied man will ever qualify for Medicaid is if he is married, has one child, and earns, you're going to love this, less than $6,924 a year.
That's crazy.
It's beyond crazy.
A therapist pulled me aside when he was very, very young, and he didn't have quite the challenges that some of the things you're talking about. He had sensory speech. He couldn't hear. We had to teach him sign language. He now can hear. But it was through the Medicaid and through the government that we were able to get all of these things accomplished for him. But a therapist pulled me aside, and she told me, you have to fight for your son.
Yeah.
You're the only advocate that he has. And I hear that's what you've done, in your life for everybody. So again, bravo to you. I'm just in awe of everything that you're doing and have done. So thank you for all of that.
Well, thank you, Eileen. And by the way, we definitely heard your testament, and we also heard we felt your feelings in your voice, and continue on. Bravo.
Thank you. Real quick, Mario, if I can, before I go.
Absolutely.
I do have a little personal agenda here as well. We have an event this weekend. May I mention it on air?
Of course.
So we have an event at Martí Colón Cemetery. There's a big history there. They're trying to redevelop a parcel, build a house on it. We do have a cleanup partnership with the city of Tampa. I would love for your listeners to join us, the community to come out and show the city of Tampa just how much that parcel and that cemetery means to all of us.
And what time is the event?
It is going to start at 9 a.m., and we'll have breakfast goodies, coffee, water, anything you need. It's all going to be there.
If there's a pastelito de guayaba in our future, this radio show host will be there for sure.
Fantastic. We'd love to have you. Thank you. And again, bravo to everything that this woman is accomplishing. I'm just in awe.
Thank you, Eileen. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Eileen.
That's
Have
wonderful.
a great day.
That is Eileen from Tampa. So she had a very personal story to share with us as well.
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. So what are we doing?
What's around the corner? What's next?
What is
What's coming
happening
up?
with
what do you need from the community?
Yeah, exactly. Thank you.
No, of course.
Well, I think a lot of it, of course, is support for people with disabilities, getting to understand the importance of diversity, equity, and inclusion in the lives of individuals with disabilities. We're seeing what's happening in education, where they're just trying to take people with disabilities or children with disabilities completely out of the public school system. And in Florida, we see how that has been playing out over these last few years. And even when parents do put their children in another setting, they take away all of their rights under IDEA, Section 504. And it's just, people don't realize how important their rights are. And I understand why a lot of families take their children out of the public school system, because they feel that they're not getting enough. But then they put them into another system
where they're getting less.
Where they aren't entitled to anything.
Karen, we're just old enough to remember, everybody here in this studio, that, there were always special education classes, right?
Yeah.
So this is even before the children came to us in a wheelchair, with a myriad of problems that those less abled have, and we're they always had their special class. They were always segregated in that way, and then little by little, I think we've great strides in incorporating DEI comes to mind, incorporating them in the inclusion that's critically necessary for them to be a viable part of our society writ large. And now, under this regime, it seems like we're just pushing everything back. I mean, are we going to get to the point where we're going to warehouse our disabled again? Because at one time in our country, that's what we did. If you had a child that was slow, or as they used to say, dim-witted, I hate that expression, but these were the stupid things that people would say about people with disabilities. They were just warehoused.
Yeah.
Where are we going with all this?
That was actually the question I asked our legislative delegation yesterday. That meeting, you get there at 9:30, and by like 2:30 in the afternoon, they had reduced the amount of time you could speak to 1 minute. And so I'd started preparing something for 2 minutes, and then I reduced it to 1.5 minutes, and then eventually 1 minute. But my question or my comment to them was that we are facing a healthcare crisis. And what is your plan? And one of my other comments was, what are you going to do with the Medicaid waivers? Or is Florida going to warehouse children and adults with disabilities again?
It's a horrible, frightening thought.
It is.
Yeah.
It is.
Let's also talk a little bit about Florida Voices, because we're talking about taking stories to Tallahassee. Let's talk a little bit about that.
Well, Florida Voices for Health, again, we are the voice for people with not only with disabilities, but anybody who has a healthcare story. A lot of the stories that I hear are healthcare nightmares, people who don't have access to care. I've had people just yesterday, while I was sitting in the room waiting to speak my 160 seconds, I received one of the forms that came in from a woman who said she'd had a heart attack and 2 strokes last year. And because of the fact that she had health care and the subsidies through the Affordable Care Act, she was able to get to the hospital in time. She said
she's alive.
She said that the feeling that she had in her left arm, she would have just said, oh, it's nothing. But because she knew she had health care, she got to the hospital. During that time, she had 2 mini strokes and a heart attack. She needed a pacemaker. And without the subsidies, she wouldn't have had access to that care. Now, this is just one email.
One isolated.
So you can imagine how many I receive. I've been dealing with a group of parents who are all either foster or adopted children, and these children all have disabilities. They have an agreement with the state. The state is supposed to be providing the health care that these children need. Over the course of the last year, they have gone from having 24-hour-a-day nursing, which some of these children absolutely need. Every single doctor has signed off on their plan of care, and the state of Florida is cutting their services over and over and over again. How these parents are doing it, I have no idea. And also our foster care system, I think it's like over 70% of all children in foster care have fetal alcohol syndrome. And parents, when they get these children, they have no idea what to do. There's another group that we talked to in Sarasota or maybe Orlando that they know more about fetal alcohol syndrome than most doctors do in the state of Florida. Mm-hmm. So it's all about us exchanging ideas, sharing ideas, and learning from each other. And what we do when we tell our stories, some of them can be, videoed and shown to a legislator, or we record them and then they go, I write them up and they go onto our website. And our website is filled with stories of people from across the state of Florida that are desperately needing health care.
It's, I was going to ask you, before we go to our next caller, we see you there, caller, stand by, Laura, we're coming right to you. I was going to ask you, Karen, and let me just say, before I run out of time, and I don't say this, I'm going to say it right now, it is painfully obvious to those of us that have been listening today and that have been in your presence, that know you as we know you, that you're incredibly smart, you're incredibly kind and caring, but also amazingly effective. And I was going to ask you, Karen, what does Karen do in her downtime to decompress? What does Karen do to kind of just, seek that moment of where you sit? But it's obvious you don't have that time, so I won't ask that question because Karen doesn't have any time. She's just working 24/7. Laura, we see you there. Thank you so much for your patience. What say you today?
Okay, can you hear me?
We can hear you, Laura. We've got you.
Okay, so my brother had open heart surgery at 1.5 years, and got a traumatic brain injury. And the hospital basically told my family to just leave him there because he would be a vegetable the rest of his life. And due to the Medicaid waiver program, he lives on his own, has support and services, and has a real life. He had to learn to walk and talk again. I'm sorry. I get so emotional. But, I mean, I know so many people who need the Med Waiver program and the SNAP program. I worked with handicapped adults for 8 years, but, you know, my brother is now 50, which is amazing. And I just wanted to say that I appreciate Karen and the fact you're doing this show, and people need to speak up, because if we don't, then who will?
Thank you so much for that, Laura. And what I always say, Medicaid is a lifeline, but a Medicaid waiver is a life. It really enables people to do things that just the typical medical or just, you know, it's not enough. A waiver provides the services like personal care assistance, respite. It enables families to be families, because none of us can do this all on our own. And that, I mean, that's really what healthcare is all about, or just about. With Hillary always used to say it takes a village, and it really does take a village when you have a family member with a disability. And also the one thing that nobody ever talks about is families as caregivers. There's a research project that's on, and they do this report every 2 years. It's called Valuing the Invaluable. If families as caregivers were paid a living wage, it would be greater than the combined budgets of Medicare and Medicaid. That is how much of a contribution caregivers give to this economy. But now they're going to push caregivers harder and harder and harder. And people, you have to wake up, because being a caregiver can happen to every single one of us. We are like Vince Sussman, one step off of a ladder, and your life can change irrevocably. So people need to understand that even though they don't need it right now, they may, or a family member will in the future, and you're going to be, disability is the one community that anybody can join.
That's right.
Laura, thank you so much for listening today.
Thank you,
and
Laura.
for your call and for your kind words. We appreciate you so much. Thank you. With about a minute and a half left in show, is there any way that people, if they'd like to reach out to you, can find you? Where can they find you, Karen? We're looking at you right now, but where can everybody else find you?
Well, I'm Mike's mom, 31 at mac.com, and I'm also Karen at healthyfla.org. Look up FloridaVoicesForHealth.org.
Just Google Karen Clay, man. All that should come up, right? Clay, C-L-A-Y.
And our website for the Michael Phillips Foundation should be up any day now. Thank heavens. Thank you, Cal Cameron, who's also running for office. Got that plug in there. And also another one I'd like to talk about, of course, is my friend Luis Vieira and also my friend Neil Manamala. These are two people that are running for office that really care about not only the disability community, but care greatly about health care. And so I'm hoping that, you know, you'll consider
And
voting
if we're
for
shouting,
them as
and if
well.
we're shouting out, can we shout out for Luis Antonio Salazar as well? Because Luis is another kind and caring and very empathetic young man, and will make a wonderful public servant. And I just want to say on behalf of everybody, we have a minute to go, Joey, so we're going to sign off proper here. But just on behalf of everybody that comes together to put this show on for our WMNF audience, what a privilege it's been to have you in studio with us today, Miss Karen.
Well,
We love you.
It has
my
been a privilege.
Thank you.
It's been a great experience.
Thank you for the work you do.
Absolutely.
Echoing the sentiments of our callers today.
Yes, absolutely.
This is why.
Where we meet at the intersection of community and compassion.
And compassion
How about
sometimes. That's
that?
another C word, right? Culture
There you go.
can be compassion as well.
So coming up next, I just want to say, folks, well, first of all, as always, special thanks to Jessica G., our board op. She is a marvelous master. Without her, we could not do this. And then coming up next It's the Music Wednesday with not Sam this week, but sitting in for Sam is Craig Hubel.
There he is. There he is.
I see him over there.
He's waving at us.
He is the master of music. He has been programming music since the age of 5, and he knows how to do it. You're in great hands this afternoon, folks.
And once again, let me just shout out, if you'd like to come and meet us this week, this Saturday. You might be at the Vic at the Visitors Information Center on Saturday, but I'm going to be at the Colón Martí Cemetery to help out with the cleanup there.
Si, senor.
Thank you once again, everybody, for listening. This has been The Conversation. Mario Nunez, Joe King Carter, and you're listening on WMNF 88.5 in Tampa.